Ayana was used to a quiet, loving home. It was just her and her father after her mother passed away. He wasn't always around, but when he was, he called her his little star and brought her favorite mango sweets. Life was simple, sometimes lonely, but it was hers. Then one day, everything changed. Her father came home with a woman named Benta, smiling wide, wearing a shiny dress and holding a suitcase. "This is your new mother," he said. Just like that, a new woman was in the house. At first, Benta acted sweet. She brought Ayana tea in the mornings and even helped braid her hair once. But soon, small things started to go missing. Ayana's favorite books disappeared from the shelf. Her school bag was tossed in a corner. Meals got smaller, just a spoonful of beans while Benta's plate overflowed. Her name was hardly spoken anymore. Benta called her "this girl" when talking to neighbors. Her father, once warm and present, now just nodded and stayed silent. Then one day, Benta stood in the doorway and looked Ayana straight in the eye. "She doesn't need school," she told her father, loud enough for Ayana to hear. "She needs to clean." Ayana felt something sink inside her. She had always been quiet, respectful, but now it felt like she was becoming invisible. No one asked how she felt. No one noticed the tears she swallowed. The house that was once hers no longer felt like home. Ayana used to have a life outside the house, one filled with things that made her heart light up. She was on the debate team, loved playing the school keyboard during music practice, and always looked forward to class trips. Her teachers said she had a spark, and her friends loved how her quiet voice always had the strongest points during debates. For a while, even after Benta moved in, Ayana tried to hold on to those pieces of herself, but slowly, one by one, they were taken away. It started with small excuses. "She can't stay late after school today. There's cleaning to do." Then came stricter rules. "No more music. It's a waste of time." Eventually, Benta said Ayana couldn't attend a school trip she had been dreaming of for months. She had already packed. But the night before, Benta stood at the door and said coldly, "Lazy girls don't get rewards." Ayana's father, Mzi Otieno, just sat there. He didn't argue. He didn't even look up. Every time Benta spoke about Ayana, he nodded slowly, like a man being told the weather report. To the outside world, he looked calm. But to Ayana, he looked like someone who had quietly disappeared. Benta didn't stop at home. She started talking to the neighbors. "That girl is trouble," she'd say in a loud voice. "Always moody, always sneaking around." Some neighbors believed her. They stopped smiling at Ayana. Some even looked at her with pity, others with cold eyes. Ayana felt herself shrinking. The world that once saw her, the teachers who praised her, the friends who laughed with her, now felt distant. She sat in class, but didn't raise her hand. She walked in the hallways but felt invisible. It was like Benta was slowly erasing her, piece by piece, day by day. She missed her old life so badly it hurt. But even worse was the silence at home, the kind that made her feel like her voice didn't matter anymore. No one asked her how she felt. No one cared that she was slipping away. Ayana was still there, but it felt like no one could see her anymore. It was a normal school day when everything fell apart. Ayana had just settled into her seat when a messenger from the office called her name. "The principal wants to see you," he said. Her heart skipped. She couldn't think of anything she'd done wrong. Still, she packed her books and walked quietly to the office, trying not to let the fear show on her face. When she stepped into the room, the air felt heavy. The principal sat stiffly behind the desk, a teacher standing beside her, holding an empty phone case. "Ayana," the principal said slowly, "someone saw you near Miss Sheila's desk. Her phone is now missing. We checked your bag, and we found it." Ayana froze. "What?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "I didn't take anything." Her eyes widened as she stared at the phone on the table. Her mind raced. She hadn't even gone near that desk, but the evidence was there. The phone was found in her bag. The teacher didn't look at her. The principal sighed. "We have no choice. You are suspended." It felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. When she got home, she expected her father to ask what happened, to maybe see the pain in her eyes. But he didn't ask anything. He already knew. Benta stood beside him, arms crossed, lips curled in fake disappointment. "We warned her," she said. Mzi Otieno didn't look at Ayana. He just said in a cold, flat voice, "You've embarrassed your family." That was the moment something inside Ayana broke. Not because of the suspension, but because her own father didn't even question it. He believed Benta. He believed she was the kind of girl who would steal. Later that night, as Ayana lay on her mattress, staring at the ceiling, she realized something worse than being accused of a crime she didn't commit, being completely alone in a house full of people. She tried to replay the day, to find a reason, to make it make sense. But deep down, she already knew. It had been Benta. Benta had planted the phone in her bag. Ayana could feel it in her bones. It was all part of a plan, to destroy her completely. And now, it had worked. Ayana couldn't stay in that house another night, not after the lies, not after her father's cold words. She packed a small bag, just a few clothes, her school notebook, and the old photo of her mother she kept hidden under her mattress. Then, while the house was quiet, she slipped out the back door and ran. Her feet didn't stop until she reached the one place that still felt safe, Zawadi's home. Zawadi opened the door and didn't even ask why she was there. She just pulled Ayana into a hug and held her tight, like she already knew. For the first time in months, Ayana let herself cry. Big, messy tears, the kind that had been locked inside her for too long. Zawadi didn't say much. She just sat beside her, passing tissues and holding her hand. Later, as the sun began to rise, Ayana finally spoke. She told Zawadi everything about Benta's lies, the missing books, the cold stares, the planted phone, the way her father looked right through her like she was a stranger. Zawadi listened without interrupting. Then, in the softest but strongest voice, she said, "You were never weak, Ayana. You were just polite. You kept hoping they'd see your heart. But now, it's time to fight for it." Something shifted inside Ayana. It was like a small flame had been lit in her chest, shaky at first, but growing stronger by the second. She realized she didn't want to keep surviving in silence. She wanted to rise. She wanted to show Benta that she couldn't be broken. That night, Ayana didn't cry again. She lay awake, eyes open, heart beating steady. Her mind was clear. She wouldn't go back and beg. She wouldn't hide. She would prove the truth, not just for herself, but for every girl who had ever been hurt and told to stay quiet. Ayana made a silent promise to herself and to her late mother. This ends now. She wasn't just going to escape Benta's game. She was going to end it, piece by piece. And this time, Ayana wouldn't be silent anymore. Ayana knew that no one would believe her words alone, not when Benta was so good at pretending. If she wanted to stop this for good, she needed proof, real proof. So she stopped crying and started planning. Every time she visited the house, she acted quiet, just like before. Benta thought she had finally broken her, but Ayana was watching, listening. She hid a small recorder, borrowed from Zawadi's cousin, inside her old school bag. Then she waited. It didn't take long. One afternoon, while washing dishes, she heard Benta say to someone on the phone, "That girl is finished. Mzee will believe anything I say. She'll be gone soon." Click. Ayana recorded it all. Next, she checked the kitchen drawers and bedroom cabinets. That's where she found the receipts. Expensive food, clothes, and even salon visits, all bought using household money. But she knew her father had been cutting back, saying they couldn't afford school trips or new books. Ayana quietly took photos of the receipts with her borrowed phone. Then came the school reports. In one of the drawers, Ayana found a crumpled copy of her real school report card. Good grades, praise from teachers. But the one Benta had shown her father was different, marked with lies and failing grades. Ayana carefully kept both copies. When she'd gathered enough, she took it all to the one adult she still trusted, Mrs. Oketch, the school principal. Ayana walked into her office, hands shaking but eyes steady, and laid it all out. The recordings, the receipts, the forged reports. Mrs. Oketch listened in silence. She didn't interrupt. When Ayana finished, the principal reached across the desk and gently held her hand. "I always believed you," she said. "Now, we'll make sure everyone else does too." Ayana felt her chest rise with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not just the soft, quiet kind. This was strong, burning, and alive. Benta had tried to erase her, but now Ayana was the one holding the truth, and she was ready to use it. Mary Mrs. Oketch didn't waste any time. After hearing everything from Ayana, she made a few phone calls, serious ones. She contacted the district education board and explained the situation. She knew the right people, and more importantly, they respected her. Within a few days, a social worker was sent to visit Ayana's home. On the day of the visit, Benta was ready. She dressed in her best clothes, made tea, and smiled wide like nothing was wrong. She spoke sweetly, calling Ayana my daughter, and telling the social worker how hard she worked to raise her well. Mizzy Otieno sat beside her as usual, quiet, nodding to every lie. Ayana sat still, hands in her lap, eyes watching everything. When the social worker finally turned to her and gently asked, "Do you feel safe here?" Ayana didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her small bag and pulled out her phone. "I want you to hear something," she said, quietly. Then she pressed play. It was Benta's voice, sharp and cruel. "That girl is nothing. She's lucky I let her stay. One day, I'll make sure she's gone for good. Watch." The room went silent. The social worker's smile dropped. Her eyes locked on Benta, who now looked frozen in place. "You've been abusing this child," the social worker said firmly, her voice now cold and professional. Benta opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Mizzy Otieno shifted uncomfortably, suddenly unsure. For the first time, someone outside had seen the truth and wasn't afraid to name it. The social worker stood, took out her notebook, and began writing. "This is no longer just a family issue," she said. "This is a case of emotional and psychological abuse." Ayana didn't smile. She didn't need to. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. Someone believed her. And this time, Benta's lies weren't stronger than her truth. Word started to spread around the village. Neighbors who had once whispered about Ayana began asking questions. The mask Benta wore was starting to crack, and people were watching. Ayana hadn't just spoken up. She had started something no one could ignore. The community meeting was held under the big fig tree near the chief's compound, the place where important matters were discussed. Everyone in the village was invited. Chairs were arranged in a wide circle, and the mood was tense. Word had spread that something serious was about to be revealed. Benta arrived dressed in her usual bright clothes, holding her head high. Mumsy Otieno walked beside her, quiet as always. He hadn't spoken to Ayana in days. He hadn't asked her any questions either. Maybe he already knew, or maybe he didn't want to know. Mrs. Oketch stood up and cleared her throat. The crowd quieted down. "I'm here today not just as a teacher," she began, "but as someone who believes children deserve protection, not punishment for being innocent." Then she laid it all out, one piece at a time. She played the recordings of Benta's threats, passed around photos of stolen receipts, and showed the two versions of Ayana's school report, the real one and the fake one. Gasps filled the air. Murmurs spread. People looked at each other in shock. "This was not discipline," Mrs. Oketch said firmly. "This was abuse. This was cruelty." Benta tried to speak. "She's lying," she started, but the chief raised his hand sharply. "We've heard enough," he said. "You have shamed this family and this community. We welcomed you, trusted you, and you used that trust to hurt a child." The chief turned to the crowd. "From this day on, Benta is no longer under the protection or respect of this village. Let no one hide her actions." Benta's smile cracked. She looked around, but no one met her eyes. Mzee Otieno sat frozen. For once, he didn't nod. He didn't defend her. He didn't even look at her. The man who had stayed silent for so long now had nothing to say. His face was pale with shame. Ayana stood quietly in the back, next to Zawadi. She didn't need to speak. Her truth had already spoken louder than anything Benta could ever say. For the first time, the village saw her not as a troubled girl, but as someone brave enough to fight for herself. And this time, they listened. Ayana stood at the gate of the house she had once called home, the place where she took her first steps, learned to ride a bike, and whispered prayers to her late mother before bed. But now, it felt like just a building, cold, empty, and full of memories that hurt. She had packed her things the night before. There wasn't much. A few clothes, her school books, and the photo of her mother that she always carried close. Mzee Otieno stood in the doorway, watching her. He didn't speak. He just stood there, like a man stuck between guilt and pride. Benta was nowhere in sight, maybe hiding, maybe ashamed. It didn't matter. Ayana took a deep breath. Her voice was steady, but her hands were trembling. Still, she looked straight into her father's eyes. "You didn't protect me," she said softly. "You watched me disappear in front of you, and you did nothing. But that's over now." She paused. Her heart was pounding, but she didn't stop. "Now watch who I become." Her words hung in the air like fire, quiet but burning. Then she turned and walked away, each step feeling heavier than the last, but also freer. Waiting at the gate was Mrs. Oketch, her car engine already running. Beside her stood a warm-faced woman named Mama Rehema, a kind foster mentor who had agreed to take Ayana in. Her home was calm, full of books, music, and quiet strength. It wasn't Ayana's old house, but it was safe. It was a place to start again. As the car pulled away, Ayana didn't look back. She knew this was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of her becoming. The pain, the silence, the lies. They hadn't broken her. They had shaped her, sharpened her. And though she was walking away with nothing more than a bag on her back and fire in her chest, Ayana knew she had something far more powerful now. She had herself, and that was enough. Back in a real classroom, Ayana almost burst with nervous energy. She sat in the front row now, copying every note, raising her hand for every question, no longer afraid of being seen. Mama Rehema woke her at dawn for warm porridge, pressed a high five into her palm, and walked her to the gate with the words, "Go shake the world, child." Ayana did exactly that. She stayed late in the library, teaching herself chapters the class hadn't reached, and drilling past papers until ink smudged her fingertips. On exam day, the hall felt like a storm cloud, but inside her mind, everything was bright and ordered. When results came out, the whole country saw her name at the top of the national list. Reporters called her surprise genius, but her teachers said, "No, this is hard work finally getting sunlight." A month later, the biggest envelope of her life arrived. Full tuition and living expenses to study law at Kenya's most respected university. Ayana stood frozen, reading the letter twice, then 3 times, before running outside and whooping so loudly she scared the neighbors' chickens. She chose law not for the prestige, but because she never wanted another girl to sit in a principal's office and feel powerless again. During her first semester, she saved lunch money, sold old textbooks, and opened a tiny after-school club in Mama Rehema's backyard. 5 girls sat on upturned paint buckets, while Ayana taught them study hacks and how to speak up without shouting. Word spread faster than she expected. Soon, a local church loaned her its hall on Saturdays, and donations of notebooks and sanitary pads arrived from strangers who had read her story online. She registered the project as a youth foundation and named it Kwa Nguvu Yetu, by our own strength. Whenever a scared stepchild showed up at the door, Ayana greeted her with a quiet smile and the same promise: "You are not alone." A radio interviewer trying to describe her calm voice and unstoppable drive called her the quiet storm of Eldoret. The nickname stuck. Ayana didn't mind. Storms change landscapes without asking permission, and they don't always make noise while they gather force. She kept her head down, finishing coursework, drafting case briefs, and building the foundation brick by brick. But everyone, from classmates to county leaders, could feel the pressure in the air. Ayana was coming, and this time the whole nation was ready to listen. Years had passed, and Ayana had grown into the kind of woman people listened to when she spoke. She was now a respected legal advisor, known across the country for fighting for children's rights. One afternoon, as she read through case files in her office, a familiar name appeared on a report: Benta. Her heart paused, but only for a moment. Benta had been arrested for defrauding another family, stealing money, and emotionally abusing a young girl. Different house, same pattern. This time, the law caught up with her, and now, the court had asked Ayana to consult on the case because of her experience, her voice, and her past. On the day of the hearing, Ayana walked into the courtroom wearing a navy blue suit and a calm expression. Benta sat at the defendant's bench, older now, but still wearing that same smug look, until she saw who was standing in front of her. Ayana took a deep breath and faced the judge. "I am not here today to seek revenge," she said, voice steady and clear. "I'm not here to hurt her. I'm here to protect every girl she ever tried to break. Every girl like I once was, afraid, unheard, and alone." The courtroom went silent. Then, slowly, people began to clap. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was the kind of applause that comes when truth meets grace, when someone chooses justice without hate. Ayana didn't look at Benta again. She didn't need to. The past didn't define her anymore. She had already won.